Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, no matter what time of day it is for you where you're at. We appreciate you joining us on the live presentation of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And if you're watching us on the replay, hey, appreciate you being here, appreciate you listening, and we're hoping this is a time of value for you. This broadcast is sponsored by the CVC Success Group, and it's actually the host or members of our coaching team. But today we brought in a special guest host and our friend Randy Spurling because Randy brings so much value to the table. And also today we're going to interview actually one of our team members. Brandi Biswell she's going to be on the spot today because we're going to interview her about the Fluesbrothers Experience, where you can go behind the curtain and see how a rock star team operates. So anyway, Randy, I appreciate you being here today, and we're going to be talking about you and what you and Jeremy do there. I hate Jeremy cannot join us today, but Jeremy's recovering from a little surgery right now, so he's a little bit bedridden. So it's a good thing that Brandi is a nurse and can take care of Jeremy in that. Maybe Jeremy's listening to us right now. We never know. But
Yeah,
anyway,
he's on pain medication, so you don't want him on here. I was on a meeting with him this morning, and I'm like, you just have to ignore him.
just ignore him. I hear you. So anyway, what brought this up was we recently had a client that brought their entire management team to Kansas City and they were a client of both myself and Brandi. And the neat thing about it, if you are a client of Brandi's and have her on retainer, she doesn't charge you for this visit to come out and see how things working. So I asked some of the people that attended, I said, give me your thoughts about attending the Fluesbrothers Experience. So Brandi, here's what one of them said this morning. There are many benefits in which I learned and experienced. It became apparent that I have great influence among peers and my input does matter. The processes were in place prior to my hiring and during my current tenure needed to be revamped, such as holding people accountable, tightening up on uniforms, grammar, spelling, presentation, and communication, documenting everything seen and heard. Growth comes from experience and want to improve is a personal decision. He also learned how to handle difficult situations, such as irate customers, layoff, corrective actions, and others. Another said from the same company that she learned you must document everything in order to properly hold your employees accountable. And this includes the good, the bad, and everything in between. We recently started an accountability sheet here at Magic that I've shared with the other companies to help us better document everything. Also, always give yourself some time to cool off after a tough situation, conversation with a coworker, and don't let your emotions control how you respond to others. How you react to situations matter. More in-house bonding, building exercises like employee favorite sheets to determine what our employees like so that we can get to know everyone a little better. We just passed out these to all our employees and we're working to create a favorites board that highlights a few of everyone's favorite items and we're going to post it in a common area where everyone can see it. So actually, I was at that company last week doing training, and when I walked in, the office manager was doing her I-9 forms, something that she learned that she was deficient in. Again, Brandi, by going to your class. So I'm going to start off with our guest host today. Randy, what kind of question would you ask Randy about the Fluesbrothers Experience?
I want to ask is for maybe some new listeners or someone new to Brandi's business. If they don't know, how long has that experience been made available to people in your industry?
So I feel like we've been doing it, Jerry, you think 3 years now probably for the Fluesbrothers Experience?
Yeah, about 3 years ago, we rolled it out because we saw this need and we had this perfect teaching lab to bring them into there.
Yeah, and Randy, thank you also for being on the show. I feel like it's like we're on Shark Tank and we've got a guest shark. I love it.
Yeah, he's kind of.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun! I'll take that. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take
good.
that. Can I follow up with that question?
Certainly.
Yes.
Can I follow up? Yeah, I want to follow up with that question. How many experiences have been offered in those 3 years?
So for the ones that are actually coming like just for the experience and not staying for class, we've only had a couple people take advantage of it. What's happening now that we have the Learning Loft and we're teaching classes, what we're seeing is a lot more people are taking advantage of it, and they're coming in town a day or two before their class and actually
Oh, how cool.
for the whole class as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Cheryl,
really cool.
what would you ask Brandi about the Fluesbrothers Experience today?
Well, Brandi, I know a little bit about it, but people listening don't. Give us the bullet points on it. What people can expect to see when they get there.
Sure. Well, I'll start by telling you a little bit about what we did with the company the other week, because it's going to look a little different for each company. With them, though, there were 6 or 7 of them. And so we actually split them up, and their office managers sat with my office, and their technician leads sat with my technician leads. And then we did where we all got together and did some class time as well for like an hour. But they had a specific goal in mind. And so they were really struggling with forms and accountability. So we spent a lot of time with them going over what forms we had. We also made our forms accessible to them, and just how they could do those within their CRM and how to really hold the technicians accountable to actually filling them out. Sometimes when other people have come in, their focus has been more office, and they want to know, how our SOPs are written and how we hold those accountable, what KPIs we're tracking. So we really try to personalize it and get a feel for the client coming in and what are they wanting to get out of the experience.
Okay. Josh, your turn. What would you ask her about the Fluesbrothers Experience?
What makes the Fluesbrothers such an shining example that I would want to send my team there? What's so special?
Well, that's a hard question for me to answer because I don't think we are that special. I always say we have our faults too. So we are flawed as well. But I guess other people seem to think that we are an example and like to come. We have been in business for 23-ish years. I've only been in the company, though, for 10, going on 11 years. And I do think in the 10 or 11 years I've been here, we have grown a lot and increased our revenue a lot, our employees. I guess my background, as most of you know, I'm a nurse, but my master's in nursing is actually in hospital administration. So I had more like law classes, HR classes, et cetera, when I was doing graduate school. And so I really focus a lot more on, Jerry brought up that one of the people from last week said I-9s. I focus a lot more on things that just a lot of business owners and companies that are small like us that maybe never even intended to be business owners or have employees, they don't know, and they don't keep up with the laws. There was actually somebody in the class that we had from another company that didn't even have I-9s and didn't know what they were. And so that was great. And I told her, don't be embarrassed by that. You're going to go back on Monday and you're going to get all I-9s on your employees. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. And then there's companies that have documentation like that, but they don't know what the retention records are and when they should get rid of those documents or how they can verify them. So I really like to specialize in more of the HR office side and just teaching those companies, because the main part of our industry, as you know, is chimneys and fireplaces. And Josh, you're second generation, so it's a little bit different, or third generation. For us, I think we're more like a lot of people where my husband started doing this and never intended to have employees and then just grew out of necessity. But he never had any business classes. And honestly, he never even worked for another company besides one that wasn't technically a real company. He never had a real job, I always tell him. So he had no idea what rules and regulations he was supposed to follow, how county law differs from state law and federal law. That was a long answer to your question.
Well, to be fair,
You know what though?
Well, to be fair, I have a business degree and they don't teach you any of that crap.
True.
Exactly. That's what I was going to add, is that what you're saying, long answer or not, I guarantee there are people taking notes when they listen to that, because sometimes we say you get out there and you're good at your skill and you're good at your trade, but you're not good at business. But people don't know what that means. What you just said, that's what that means. Your business is a bunch of letters you don't understand. KPIs, I-9s, 1099s. It's not uncommon for people to kind of have that like glossed over look
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we focus a lot on the handbook with the office side as well. A lot of people don't realize they have a handbook that's like 10 years old and they've never updated it. And they don't realize that it needs to be updated at least every year, usually every quarter when new laws come out. The Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act, I think, just took effect on the 27th, so just a couple days ago. So now we all have to update our handbooks again.
Yeah. So, Brandi, I got two questions in my segment. Number one is, let's tell people, what is an I-9 form?
So that is a form where you verify if someone can legally work in the United States or not. And some states require you to use E-Verify, not all states. In Kansas, I'm not required to use E-Verify. However, I still have used it when I have had workers that are coming in that say they have a work visa, and I want to make sure and run it through E-Verify to make sure that it is a legit work visa and they're able to work. Yep. So it's a federal form versus a state form.
Okay, good. I just want to continue that in case anybody's listening doesn't even know what an I-9 form is, because I think a lot of people may not even know what an I-9 is or why they have to do this. So here's my question, is we both know you and Josh are very much up and know how to use your CRM, which is ServiceTitan. And like I sent Brandi a note this morning, I think one of the problems in this industry and home service is that people don't understand the management information that can come out of here. I know I was listening to Tommy Mello interviewing Ishmael, who's a HVAC contractor, who talked about how knowing his data that he was able to pull from ServiceTitan to run his business enabled him to multiply his business tremendously, because now he knew where the money was coming from, where the business was coming from. In fact, he talked about one marketing campaign that he was participating in, that he was only getting, the marketing was costing 50% of the leads that they got in from the return, and by using the proper CRM. So the question to me is this something that would be very beneficial for a person who is using ServiceTitan to come in and actually observe the operation that you've got and how you have meshed ServiceTitan in? And let me add this in. Getting Brandi to go to ServiceTitan originally was a right real pain in the ass, because she fought it with every ounce of it she had, till finally she worked with some clients and saw the potential. So does this help people by attending the Fluesbrothers Experience to understand and how to use their software, Brandi?
It does. And certainly we can probably show them some things that they don't know about the software. But I think even if it's not ServiceTitan, if it's House Call Pro or ServicePal or any of the others, I think they can still get ideas on some reports that they can hopefully pull from their software as well, or better ways to utilize their software. So it doesn't necessarily have to be ServiceTitan, but definitely we specialize in ServiceTitan here.
Yeah, because you also have a certified administrator on staff in Madison. And do they get an opportunity? Is Madison one of the people that they work with if they're in the office?
They do. And so like for the company that was here the other week, we created a Telegram line. They're also on Telegram. And so we created a Telegram line with all of our people and all of their people. And we're sharing a lot of forms and tips and things back and forth on the Telegram so that they would have those resources when they went back. And that office, actually, there were several of them in there that are also working on it's called your STCA, your ServiceTitan Certified Administrator. So they were able to talk to Madison about that journey.
Okay, fabulous. So there's a lot of benefits there that people may not realize, because I know that people need to learn by actually seeing and doing. A lot of times as coaches, we can tell them, but we've got to, they've got to see it and they've got to do it. And I know this particular company is now stepping up, because Josh is now designing new forms using conditional logic in the forms, which is that's one of the benefits. And conditional logic, Josh, we may get you to explain that within this broadcast today. So Randy, what would be the next question you'd have for Miss Brandi?
Going back to how when people come into that experience, and you said you kind of like talk with them and kind of assign it to like who you're speaking with, do you find that you use some sort of assessments for the business itself, like a DISC assessment, or just an assessment for the business owner who's going to bring their field techs, office people in? so that you can better kind of like cater to them what they need to learn.
Yes, and like in this case, the company that was here a couple weeks ago, I actually have most of their discs on them, so I already kind of knew their personalities and how they work. But yes, I think anytime that we can have any of those resources are helpful. And I also just like to ask them, how do they like to learn? Sometimes we have people who come in and do the experience and they want to ride on the truck with the technician, and that's great. We're a little bit unique, I think, from talking to other companies in that our quality control is a little bit different. So before our guys can close out on a form, they are assigned to either my director of operations or my field manager, who goes over all their documentation before they can close it out to make sure that everything looks good, because the customer's getting it instantly. And then those same people go back through the documentation every evening, again, make sure everything's there, make sure that the customer paid, check that they did quality control. And that's one of the things I think that a lot of people are shocked by when they come in, is that process that we have. So for example, we've worked with companies that their technicians just weren't filling out the forms. Well, for us, with our process, that would never happen, because you have to fill out the form and get it checked before you can leave the job.
Yeah. And I like that a lot, because as technology improved, we started taking photos with our employee phones and tablets. And then, you just start to think about problems that could arise when a homeowner gets the wrong photo in the wrong sequence. And it's not that we're hiding anything, but it's the way you deliver the information. You don't want them to think, oh, wait, if this photo showed up last, this means you missed this. Like, no. It's just a headache you don't need, if you can just go through that process.
Yeah. And those photos are so important, even in documenting, when we do dryer vents, for example, when our people get there, they have to take a video of the dryer vent working before they even touch it. And then again, when they're done, the fireplace, they take a video of the fireplace lit up and a picture of it working before we leave, because who knows what happens after we leave.
Yeah. And
can I say something? I'm going to add something to that about our documentation. And a different company that Anthony and I own, very, very one time, nothing happened on the job except for the homeowner's perception. After doing the waterproofing, now their whole entire basement floor is cracked and we should fix it. We went back to the original walkthrough video and showed them the floor's been cracked for about 20 years.
Yes.
Documentation, right?
Yeah.
Yep, we had a similar story where we had a customer, we'd installed a unit and she was saying that we had scratched her floors. And we're like, there's no way. We lay down all the proper things. And so director of operations goes out there and he's got the photos from when we were out there the first time. And where her floor was scratched was where her tree stand was when we were out there. It was her tree stand that had scratched the floors.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right. But you touched it last. Yeah.
Right. And then also comes into play, because like I said, after this visit, I did training with this company the next week. And it was all about captioning the photographs and the proper descriptive terms. And actually, this is where Josh is now designing up their forms using conditional logic into their forms that hopefully is going to be released out next week. So this particular company has made a lot of progressions in a very few short weeks as far as moving to a new level. So Cheryl, what would be your next question for Miss Brandi today?
Well, as we all know, you run a business. There's day-to-day things go on. So we've got people out there that are getting interested. Let's just use that word. How long does it usually take you to prep for someone? Because you're pulling all your teams. You've got your techs, your office, you, Jeremy. You're pulling a lot of people off the field.
Yeah, the more advanced notice we can have, the better, because we can have things more prepared. I'm sure we could pull it together last minute, but you're right. We like to have certain appointments on the schedule if they are going to be going out in the field and there's something particular they want to see. And we want to make sure that, like, my director of operations isn't on vacation if they're coming in and they have a director of operations that they're bringing with them. So definitely the more advanced notice, the better. And I have to bring up too, one thing I love about doing it is I learn just as much from them as they learn from me. And I get great ideas too. Jerry, you talked about the favorite sheet, and that company is now posting it on the wall with a few of the favorites. I've had the favorite sheet for 10 years, but I never thought to post it like that. And that way everybody can see a few of their favorite things if they want to get like their favorite candy bar or their favorite drink. I never even thought of that till you mentioned that today.
Yeah. So Josh, I'm going to go to you, and I want, before you ask your question of Brandi, I brought up something a while ago, which is in the forms that you're developing and using ServiceSide has what they call conditional logic. Can you give us a short description of what use of conditional logic is? And Randy, this could be a really beneficial one for you guys to listen to this, okay? So Josh, go ahead with what is conditional logic?
So conditional logic is basically, it's a pretty simple if and then scenarios. You can, and for what I use it for is like, well, if you select this, then we'll populate certain questions or we'll take certain questions away. So that way we just get the information exactly like the customer needs to see. The hot topic list, where if like a section, because what we do, as you know, what we do with the inspection reports is really is how we make our money. And if you don't back up your findings, like what Brandi said about them checking the forms, like I hate seeing a form, you got all this wonderful information there and you didn't backstop it with pictures, because we have it pre-written language in, and it drives me insane when they don't backstop it with photos. I'm like, well, eventually I don't even, it's like you're not even telling the truth because you just didn't take a few seconds to think, okay, I have to backstop this. So the conditional logic is at its simplest a series of if and then questions. If this is bad, then in a lot of cases I have different photos pop up that are relevant to what they're doing.
Got you covered. And then what is backstopping exactly? Use that term. Let's tell people what you mean by backstopping.
You put in facts, not opinions, direct sections of code. If you say something's cracked, put a picture of what's cracked. Make sure it's in the correct section. Just making sure. I always hate especially when you did paper, the connect the dots. When you always had to connect the dots for the customer, and you had to lead them on this huge path to get them to where you want them, instead of it all just being in one source. So that's why, like, my reports are very much by section. So if I'm talking about 6 bullet points, I've got a photo that will at the high level, and then it'll tell you what all the different points are.
Gotcha. Understand. So I've deflected to get us some answers from you on that, Josh, because that's an area that you and Brandi are both, and Brandi will refer people to you when it gets into the use of forms, conditional logic, price.
I hate making forms. I hate them. I said I hate making forms. I can do it, but I hate it. But I do have to give a shout out for the conditional logic, like Josh said, though, because it is, it was a changer for our industry. For example, an inspection form used to have a prefab form and a masonry form and a direct vent form. Now you can have one inspection form that asks what type of unit it is. And if you say it's prefab, then only the prefab questions drop down. We use it in our office. We have a form for when they book repairs, and it asks, is the customer financing? And if they say no, then nothing drops down. If they say yes, then a whole series of questions about the financing drops down. So it's exciting.
It is, and that's what separates CRMs. A lot of people, and like I said, Brandi and I were talking this morning that people look at CRMs, and some of them are just looking for scheduling software. And to be honest with you, if that's all they're looking for, they don't need a service titan, because it would be foolish to pay that much money for a simple scheduling program or something just to send out your estimates with. And that's where Brandi and Josh can really help people out, because when it gets into software, I tell everybody, I'm not the geek. That's what I've got them for. That's their areas of expertise, not mine. Okay?
Well, I think that's what's great about Josh and I is we kind of complement each other. I really like to do the onboarding of clients, and I really like to do a lot of the office side. And he's really good at the price book and the forms, and after they're up and running.
Gotcha. So, Josh, we never got a question yet from you. We kind of went off base there on the conditional logic. So what would you ask Brandi?
Well, first question I was asked, does my belly count under the Pregnancy Act?
Probably yes. Well, we'll say yes.
And
I hope that was not your question. Okay?
No,
that's just Josh's thought in his head for the day.
Yeah, I actually had to write it down. I was like, does that count for me? But actually, and I guess Jeremy shared with you, I redid one of his forms for him because
he did not share that.
Oh yeah, I redid your.
I love it.
Your Cricut form because I couldn't stand looking at it.
So wait a minute, Jeremy had you redo a form.
He didn't ask me.
He took credit for it.
Well, He didn't ask me to. I asked him for some feedback on something, and he sent me his form, and it was all some handwritten, and it looked like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. And I was like, this just hurts my eye. So it took me about 15 minutes to remake it.
If Brandi had her way, we would only use Josh's forms. But Jeremy created a lot of our forms.
Okay,
I made it look professional.
Okay, so pregnant Josh is not the question. So what's your question, bud?
But you do bring up a good point, Josh. Let's remember that if you're interviewing someone, you cannot ask them legally if they're pregnant.
So some of the things Jerry brought up early was about how to handle irate customers and accountability sheets. What does that look like?
So for irate customers, I actually have a system that I teach called HEAL, which stands for hearing them, easing the tension. Of course, when you put me on the spot, it's hard for me to remember. Oh, act and then leave. And then we discuss each of those in detail. Yeah, and then leave. We discuss each of those in detail. So that's like a diffusion method, we'll call it, that I teach. And then as far as the accountability, honestly, with that, it's a lot of just getting the person comfortable with holding people accountable, because often that's a person thing where the person just doesn't feel comfortable holding someone accountable for whatever reason. They think they're going to quit, or they think they're not going to like them. And so we really have to dig into, why are you not holding them accountable first?
So on my wiki page, or on my internet site, I have a quote that says, "Being held accountable may feel like an attack if you're not ready to acknowledge how your poor decisions impact others."
I love that. I love that. And the truth is people want to be held accountable. It's like teenagers. They'll tell you that they don't want to have a curfew and that they don't want to have these rules, but they actually do. It makes them feel safe and loved. And our employees are no different. They want to be accountable.
Yeah. Okay, Brandi, so it's my turn. How many days should someone plan if they want to really dig deep and go deep with the Fluesbrothers Experience? How long do they need to be there?
The 2-day would be ideal, but we can do it in 1 day, especially if they're staying over for class, because a lot of what I teach in the classes are things that we do here in Fluesbrothers.
Okay, so if they're coming in conjunction, but actuality, they need a good 2 days. And then if you're teaching a class and they come in prior to or after the class, then it will be it might require less time. And they can bring any member of their management team into this, or any of their techs, to observe there. So do you feed them there? What do you serve for lunch and all that?
Oh, Jerry, now you're going to make me have the barbecue talk with you. Anytime I travel to clients, Jerry's always like, "Oh, you have to go to this barbecue place, or you have to go to that barbecue place." And I'm like, "I'm from Kansas City. You cannot speak to me about barbecue."
Wait a minute. When you were in Oklahoma, I sent you to fried chicken, lady.
That is true. But so we are known for our barbecue here. And so we do treat them to barbecue lunches. We take them to some of the hot spots in town. If any of you watch Ted Lasso, the main character that plays Ted, he's here from Kansas City, and on his computer screen in the show, he has one of our barbecue restaurants saved. And so we'll take people there as well.
Okay, got you covered. So, but again, if somebody comes from the barbecue capital of North Carolina, they may know theirs is better, right?
No, I do have to say that we had a company come in a couple years ago, and they've actually done the experience twice. And the first time they came in, it was just the owner and their head guy, and they went to barbecue for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like 3 days while they were here, and tried every barbecue place in town. So they can tell you what they think the best barbecue is.
There you go. That's it. Okay, so this will be the last round of questions. Randy, what would be your final question to dig deep into about the Fluesbrothers Experience?
So Brandi and Randy, we share similar names. So I have two, just in case Josh doesn't come up with his last one. Okay.
I like it.
I see what goes on this podcast. So,
I have a hard time too, because I think I'm losing my hearing. And so I'm always like, are they saying Brandi or are they saying Randy?
I was going to address that. I'm like, just call me Spurling, so we just don't. Right? So really my actual question I'd like to ask would be like, in the back of my head, with our size business and the amount of training that we do in-house, we start to develop what could be a class. So my question for you is, did you develop the class for the industry first, or did you develop for in-house business training and then see the opportunity to sell it as a class? And
I
not
would
just
say-
for the money, but to sell the education, you know?
Yeah, I would say I developed it for the industry first because I feel like I've been teaching classes for the industry since I very first got into this. And we've only been offering the Fluesbrothers Experience for a couple of years. So I would definitely say all my classes have really been designed with, and not even just our industry. I work with companies outside of our industry as well, because especially the office stuff that transforms into any business.
Right. And that's what I kind of wondered. I wasn't sure, like, you know, if you build it for the industry, of course your team gets the experience, right?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Spurling. I'm gonna start calling you Mr. Spurling. So
I
we
kind of
don't-
like it, Spurling.
Yeah, or we could be
Yeah, just
like
no mister.
okay, so you'll be just like Wolf was the other week. We'll just call you Spurling from this point forward. How's that? The light
That
bulb
works.
has gone off. Okay, so Cheryl, what would be your final question for Brandi about the Fluesbrothers Experience?
This is to give people a little more information. And Randy brought it up earlier about the disc, going the disc, understanding what they want. But do you require or ask the owner or the leader, whatever's coming in, to give you a list of areas that they want to work on first, or they just fall in on you on a freewheel?
No, we definitely go over before they come. I have an idea of where they think their weaknesses are and what they want to get out of the experience and what they think we can help them with. And I saw that Barbara made a comment on there, Jerry, that she had barbecue 4 times when she was here. She came in for one of the CSR classes that's hosted by the NCSG. And that's a 2-day class. And we do serve barbecue on the second day of class. We have it catered in.
Yeah. So, Josh, what will be your final question for Miss Biswell to continue to stop this confusion between Randy and Brandi?
I'm hard of hearing, and I can at least differentiate between the two. And I know it's documented I have hearing loss.
Show off.
Well, you know, when I got the hearing results and it said I had problems hearing small children and women, I just slid that piece of paper right over to my wife.
That's awesome.
I was like, I'm not ignoring you.
That's why I've switched to these earbuds. So hopefully I can hear better.
Oh yeah. I have massive sound system. But would you say when they come there, they're not so much going to be working on their technical side, but it sounds like they're going to be working a lot on the soft skills. Is that kind of what you would say?
Yes, I would say that, unless they're going out in the field with the technician just to learn, how we do different things. Oftentimes, like for the technician side, what we see is though, like they want a copy of our loading sheet because they don't have a loading sheet for their technicians, or they want a copy of our truck checks and how we do truck checks. Or Jerry brought up with that company, somebody had said about on uniforms. We actually have a picture hanging up that shows you exactly how you should be dressed as a technician each and every day and how you need to show up to work. So I would definitely say, yeah, it is more the soft skills, more so than the technical skills.
No, I would say you would excel at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Brandi,
I think it adds. I think when you do that and you see that and you show that to a smaller business coming in, it is better marketing. It is better retention for customers when your company has those soft skills. You can be a great cleaner, a great installer, but please, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've just taken like what we wished we would have had when we started out. Now, Jeremy was very lucky when he got started in the industry, and he had a Bart Ogden out of Wichita was a amazing mentor for him. But we would have loved to have had the opportunity to go in and spend time at a company for a couple of days and just soak up all the knowledge.
Yeah. And my last question for you, Brandi, is right behind you, there's a banner on the wall, and it says the Learning Loft. And this is something that I want to make sure we point out. You and Jeremy have made a tremendous financial investment into remodeling your facility. The entire upstairs has been turned into a training center. It's actually an apartment. When instructors like myself come in, we actually stay upstairs. There's 2 bedrooms up there and all that. It's a really key facility. It's good. They have a kitchen up there. They have everything that you can imagine. It's not crowded. It's roomy. It has a living areas up there and all that, which is really, really makes you feel, but y'all invested heavily. But tell us a little bit about what you do, not just with the Fluesbrothers Experience, but what kind of classes are being held in the Learning Loft? You've got one coming up in just a few weeks.
Yeah. So I think my first love is actually teaching, especially being a nurse. That's what you do, is you do a lot of patient education and teaching. And then I've taught at the collegiate level. I love teaching. I always say if I could do that all day, that would be what I would do. So it's been really nice to bring in students and have classes, and it's been nice for them to travel to me and me not to have to travel to them. And so our class coming up in just a few weeks here in July is for business owners only. So it's a business owners only class. And why I say that is there's things in a room of business owners that we can talk about that we can't talk about if the leadership team is in there or if we've got CSRs in there. It's the same way the CSR class that is actually sponsored by the NCSG, the National Chimney Sweep Guild. I don't prefer to have business owners in there because I want the CSRs to feel like that's a safe space for them to talk without their boss being there and for them to work through whatever issues they're having. We also have, so we've got the business owner class. Office management was the last class that we had here. That one is really designed around office managers or technician managers, really anybody in the leadership management position. And then I also have one that I didn't get a chance to teach this year, but we'll teach next year. That's actually on what hostage negotiation can teach us about customer service and communication.
Yeah. So Randy,
that's a fantastic title.
I love reading about hostage negotiation.
That's a fantastic title. I love it.
So Randy,
whatever that is, sign me up. I want to go.
Okay, perfect.
As you hear her rattle off those classes and you place yourself back years ago when you were starting your businesses, what kind of a benefit would it have been to you as a fledgling business owner to have access to this type of education?
So we actually do in our industry have a huge authority that teaches. IRCRC is huge. They teach you technical. They don't teach the soft stuff. They don't teach the business mindset, the money. They don't teach the conversations. That's the stuff that I would, develop myself, put together. It would have been great to get in year 2 and 3, which is now 18 to 19 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And all industries are like that. When we look at it, the chimney and vending industry has so much training out there now. It is unreal. It's an extremely highly competitive market. But again, it goes back that the vast majority of this is soft skills. Hard skills. It's technical. It may be sales skills, but training people in how to run a successful business, that is where we are trying to provide something. And I think Brandi has done such an excellent job in what she has put together there. And she has been a godsend for us here at CVC Success Group to be on to our team, to work with our team and all that. So if you're listening to us, if you want to take your business to another level, if you want to develop these soft skills, these management level skills, then what you need to do is reach out to Brandi. Her email address is right there on the screen. It's Brandi with an I at cvcsuccessgroup.com, and get lined up for this. If you want to go to the Fluesbrothers Experience, then set a time up. Like she said, she needs some advanced notification. Don't call and say, hey, we want to come Thursday and it's Monday, because they're not going to have time to put it together for you.
And you can't come in October.
Can't come in October. What's happening in October?
That's the busiest month for all chimney sweeps across the United States.
Okay, so during the busiest month of the year, Fluesbrothers Learning Loft is off limit to visitors during that month.
Yep, that's where we got to make money. And Jerry, they also can follow on Facebook. I think it's Brandi Biswell CVC, and on Instagram, it's also Brandi Biswell CVC, and there's also a Learning Loft KC on Instagram.
Yeah, and what we try to do is we try to share it out there. So think about it. You want to take your business to the next level, then hey, we're trying to provide those answers to you here at CVC Success Group, and that's why we have this great team here. And Randy, before we sign away, I want to thank you for joining us today. You're a really great part of this broadcast when we have you on as a guest host. So, and Brandi's learned a lot about it since he's got involved in this. He's doing some things himself I think are going to really shine him in the next couple of years. Right, Randy?
Yeah, I just appreciate the experience. You guys have been great.
Thank you, Spurling.
Yeah, looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward
Got
next
it,
time I'm in
Biswell.
Rochester to meet you in person, where you just don't run through the parking lot and I'm inside the stinking building. Why? And you don't want to disturb me. Don't want. We ain't gonna let that
Well,
happen again.
no, but we're not going to go for barbecue because we are so close to the home of buffalo wings that we'll get you some really good wings.
I'll agree with that. I've had buffalo wings in Buffalo, New York, and Rochester, so I agree with that. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us today on this episode of the Chimney and Fireplace Success Network. And so you'll know, we are rebranding the name with the logo and all of our broadcasts. We are changing this in the coming weeks to the CVC Home Success Network. And the reason we're doing that, Randy, I hope this makes sense to you. What we're talking about is not just confined to the chimney and venting industry. The methods, the processes that works for any home service business that's out there. Would you agree with that from your involvement with us so far?
100%.
Okay, well, that's coming up. So as you look, you're going to see that new branding coming out in the coming weeks. I just got the logo the other day. It'll look very similar, but that's what we're changing the name to. So appreciate you joining
And
us.
are you going to follow that up with are you going to follow that up with another book?
The next book is in the works right now.
Yeah.
Waiting on the final edit. It's about how to turn your waste dollars into your profit dollars. So it's sitting with my editor right now, getting ready to come out before long. Okay, Randy, you know I'm always writing a book. I told you that when we first met. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, appreciate everybody joining us today, and we'll see you next time on the next episode. And hey, look, it may be the CVC Home Service Success Network next week. And with that, we'll see you next time on our next episode, no matter what we're calling it at that time. Appreciate you joining us. We'll talk to you next time. Have a fantastic 4th of July.